because, Frank, on our last episode, we were just talking about fighter compensation. On our last episode, we were talking about what happened with Tony Ferguson. Because this past weekend, Khabib Nurmagomedov, unable to make weight for their fight, Tony Ferguson was scheduled to make $250,000 to show and $250,000 to win. And we know that he was offered opponent Michael Johnson on about 24 hours' notice, and that he had declined it because it was not going to be for the same money, and it wasn't going to be for an interim title. And the part about it not being for the same money kind of, I think, collectively confused us both. We kind of thought, well, if it's going to be a matter of keeping you on the card. By the way, I think Eddie Alvarez also offered to take that fight, that they would have paid him the same money. But we now find out he has spoken about this. He spoke to Stephen Morocco at MMA Junkie, and apparently he was not even paid all of the show money.
Really?
Yeah, that he got a portion of it. He said he was paid six figures, approximately twice what he would have contractually received for a non-title fight. So he would have made, what's that, $100,000, maybe something like that. So it sounds like he might have gotten somewhere in the neighborhood of half of the show money. And it was my understanding, Frank, at least historically, that if your opponent missed weight and then you got on the scale and made weight, typically haven't fighters been paid their show money?
Absolutely. That's as far as I've known. But again, that was when it was the Dana White and Fertitta show.
Yeah.
Now, it's not that way anymore. Dana seems to always be pretty much on the side of the fighters. He just, I think that's one thing that's embraced him with the guys. If you ever had problems, I've had issues, throughout the years, and been able to call him up and sit in the office and look for advice and talk to him. And that guy that I know, I don't think would have done that. So it makes me wonder. That sounds like that was a WME, IMG, completely on their point, and that just shows you the new climate of the modern UFC. I think if Dana would have had it his way, Ferguson would have been paid his full show money, because that's how they've done in the past. Lorenzo and Frank, and Dana and Joe Silva. Now that the only one still standing there in that group is Dana White, I wonder if he's outnumbered and they're trying to change things. Because even on top of that, I've kind of suspected that of late, just because the Dana that I know would not have fired any employees at all. You have to underachieve and underperform for him to fire you. If you're doing a good job, he'll give up his own paycheck before he fires you. Now, the fact that they cut people, that shows kind of who's in charge now, and it's one more indication of where the UFC is heading.
Yeah, we were actually having an interesting conversation about this in the dressing room tonight of the comedy show. I was doing a guest set in front of Sam Tripoli, who was headlining there tonight, and we were actually taping their podcast in the dressing room with him and a couple of
Are you double dipping on me?
Yeah. No,
cheating on me?
No.
I leave the country and you're off with other podcasters?
No, Frank, I was promoting us is what I was doing.
Oh.
I was doing media appearances myself to promote us.
Okay.
But, he brought up, Sam lives in L.A. and, deals with acting and networks and agencies and studios and all that kind of stuff, doing movie and TV work. And he was pointing out, he follows UFC, and he said, he brought up this specific thing, and he said, it's a little bit like, it's indicative of the fact that the company has been bought by a Hollywood talent agency, because not only are their accounting departments notoriously frugal, but the other thing that happens, too, is there tends to be a mentality of we can recast certain parts, So, okay, well, if our top star isn't going to sign on for this movie, we'll just put another star in that place and it'll be just as good because they're following a script. But I think the problem here is you're not following a script. You can't
Not at
just
all.
if Tony Ferguson isn't agreeing to your price, you can't make somebody else the new Tony Ferguson overnight. There's really only one.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think that's also too the other analogy that I keep telling people, and I don't know if I've mentioned on the show, but people ask me what's going on, and I'm like, look, the UFC still has a lot of talent and a lot of guys. I think that the mid-level guys right now, the guys working them up, they're going to be disappearing in groves, just because I've already talked to a few guys that don't want to be mentioned, but their contracts came up for negotiation, and they were offered half of what they were already getting paid for the new contract, even though they're on a 3-1 type of win record.
Yeah,
that's crazy to me. I never back when that just doesn't happen. So I think a lot of the guys that they could make stars out of, the future stars, are going to be leaving. But that being said, they still have it. So if right now you said, hey, Frank and Richard, you guys got to make a movie, I'm like, all right, we'll give you access to all the A-list Hollywood stars, everybody who's been nominated for Academy Awards, all the, instantaneously recognizable names. You can have the Brad Pitts, the George Clooney's, of the world, Ron Gosling, Ryan Reynolds, they're your lead. There you go. All right. Okay. But we're going to go chintzy on the director and the production crew. We're going to that not so much. I'm like, oh, really? Like, yeah, the writers, everybody else that supports the movie, you're going to be undercut on. All right. What kind of movie do you think I'm going to be able to produce?
Yeah. No, not a very good one.
And that's what's happening to the UFC. They fired, they're not fired, but they're letting go, I guess the more polite way to put it, a lot of the back room, a lot of the production staff, a lot of the people that are the movers and shakers of the organization. There's guys in their accounting department that they let go that have been working with them for 10 years, that they understand the fighters. It's not just numbers on a piece of paper. They realize, hey, look, this guy, this person or these guys are typically going to do this. And so, we help them out. So we go this way. So that type of syncrasy is gone. And I think that's going to start to be very noticeable to the fans. And then on top of that, when you have other organizations that are putting out such quality shows on top of that, I think it's actually a good situation for fans of MMA and for fighters, because you're not going to have just one guy calling all the shots. It's going to be a competing league. And I mean, if you know anything about business, when people are competing for your dollar, you, the customer, you are the winner.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, it may be the kind of thing that is not really fully noticed for some time, because they did purchase the organization at a time where they have a marquee, a face of the franchise like Conor McGregor, and a couple other top names, recognizable names associated with it. It may be the real test may be what you alluded to, which is to see if at this point new ownership can actually grow future marquee talent. The guys, we don't even know who those people are right now, those guys and girls. And will these names be rising to prominence in a couple of years? Or in a couple of years, will we be looking around going, we're really not seeing anybody come up in the organization? And I think that's when we really know.
You know what? I'll have to come back at a later time, and I'll give you the exact names. But I remember one time I was a fight card, and I think I was here in England, in London, actually. One of the fighters on the card made weight, was fine, but had a temperature of over 100 degrees, right? Mm-hmm. He was going to fight anyways. Mm. The UFC, Lorenzo, stepped in and went, no, you know what? We'll pay you your full amount. Don't worry about it. Paid the other guy, too. They're like, it's not important, your health. You go out there, bad performance, you hurt yourself. Why do that to yourself? But it shows you the mentality of how the old guys took care of the fighters. Yeah. It's like, hey, look, you know what? You're sick. You have a fever. It ain't like you have stage fright. We can see the thermometers telling you you're 102 degrees. Mm-hmm. So they pulled the guys and gave them their money. Now, knowing what we know about Ferguson, do you think that the new organization would have done that?
All right, no,
And
no.
so, I mean, that's another reason why they built the UFC to be what the UFC has become, is taking care of the fighters on that level. I mean, they're the main product you're putting out there. And so you want to have the confidence of the fighters behind you that, you're not going to be stuck in the cheapest hotels. They're not going to have you on, 6 different connecting flights because that was the cheapest way the travel agent can get you in.
Mm-hmm.
That's happening now.
Yeah, yeah. It's I think it is indicative. I mean, having been through, and this is, I'm not on the inside, I'm on the periphery, but I hear the same things. Having been through like big corporate sales and mergers and things like that, and radio, you've seen this happen before.